Sometimes, after an after school club at my school, I'd be one of the last people to leave. The club would end around 5:30, and at that time the sun has already set. It wasn't daylight savings anymore, so it was darker earlier. If I was alone, I'd get this uneasy feeling. Normally the halls would be full of students, laughter, and unusual noise, but at that hour, everything felt different. This photo was taken right after that feeling started to creep in. These stairs, they were the spot where I felt the most uneasy. Something about this place at night made me feel like I was being watched. I could always feel eyes on me, even though there was no one there. It wasn't anything too crazy, just this nagging feeling that I wasn't alone. At one point, I even turned around to check, just to make sure I wasn't being followed. It felt like a silly thing to do, but in that moment, the fear felt real. The stillness of the night, the emptiness of the school. It was like everything had quieted down, leaving only that feeling of something or someone being out of sight. Night amplifies that feeling of vulnerability. There's something about the dark that makes the familiar feel strange. The quiet and the lack of people, the way lights flicker, it all adds up. It's not that we know something dangerous is waiting, but the unknown and the darkness leaving us on edge. Our brain starts filling in the gaps, creak in the floorboards, a flicker of light. Everything becomes something to worry about, even if there's no logical reason to be afraid. The fear of the night isn't just what's around you, it's about how your mind starts to react when you can't see clearly. Without the comfort of daylight, your brain starts processing things differently. You begin to imagine things aren't there. The quiet suddenly becomes suffocating, and the darkness seems to stretch on forever. It's that feeling of being watched or like something is lurking just at a sight that makes the dark so unsettling. And no matter how much you try to convince yourself that there's nothing to be afraid of, the mind keeps on feeding you into that unease. Nyctophobia, the fear of the dark, is one of our most basic primal fears. It's not just about the absence of light, but what the absence means. For our ancestors, the night was dangerous, predators roamed, and survival depended on staying alert. Over time, this fear became wired into us, and though the world is much safer now, the instinct to be wary in the dark is still there, deep down. At night, when everything's still quiet, our brains are more likely to focus on the unknown. Uncertainty about our environment was a threat itself. The constant need to be aware of our surroundings is hardwired into us. Our brains are constantly scanning for danger, looking for signs of movement, sounds, or changes in the air. When we can't see what's around us, the brain amplifies small sounds, like the creak of a floorboard or the rustle of the leaves outside, and turns them into something threatening. It's a defense mechanism that keeps us alert, even though there's nothing there. The brain's tendency to imagine danger can create a very real sense of fear. Another fact that makes night unsettling is silence. During the day, the noise around us, people talking, traffic, the general hum of life, creates a sense of security. At night, that noise vanishes, and in its place, we are left alone with our thoughts. The brain's fear response is triggered not only by visual stimuli, but also by sounds, the lack of them. Silence, especially at night, often feels unnatural to us. The isolation can trigger feelings of vulnerability, heightening our fear and response. When we're isolated, we feel more exposed, and our mind becomes more susceptible to anxiety. Another common fear at night is the sensation of being watched. This feeling is rooted in our evolutionary past as well. Our ancestors, constantly on alert for predators, were keenly aware of their surroundings. Any feeling of being observed would have triggered a response to assess and react to possible danger. Even today, when we are in an environment where we're alone or feel isolated, the brain may interpret sounds or movements as someone or something approaching, activating the fear response. Humans are social creatures, and isolation, particularly at night, can exacerbate those feelings of fear. The brain is wired to seek comfort and connection from others, and when that connection is absent, it triggers anxiety. This is why being alone in the dark can be so unnerving. Without the presence of others, the brain becomes more alert, and then heightened awareness can make us perceive threats where there are none. The combination of the darkness and isolation is powerful because it triggers multiple fear responses at once. So why does the night feel so scary? The amygdala, the part of our brain that processes emotions, particularly fear, becomes more active at night. This heightened activity is a result of the uncertainty the darkness creates. The amygdala sends signals to other areas of the brain that prepare us for action, activating the flight or fight response. This response was evolved to help us escape from predators, but in today's world, can cause us to overreact to harmless situations. Essentially, our brains are hardwired to be cautious when visibility is low, leading us to interpret ambiguity as a threat. Ultimately, the fear of the dark is rooted in our brain's survival mechanisms. The night itself is not inherently dangerous, but the way our brain processes it, amplifying fear and uncertainty, makes it seem much more threatening than it is really. When the light returns, so does our sense of safety. Then things that once seemed ominous become clear, allowing our brain to relax and let go of that tension. The brain's natural response to darkness, though primal, is a reminder of how powerful the mind can be in shaping our perception of fear. Thank you for watching this and subscribe.